Are you a liar?
Am I a liar?
Are you a liar?
Never.
Liar! Never. Study shows everybody's a liar. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Juan Words Podcast. My name is Angelica Casares.
And I'm Juan Alanis.
Welcome.
Not a liar.
Not a liar. What did Juan say? I just need to point out, I is not a liar.
Well, we'll see. Right?
We'll see. So, on today's episode, we are going to tell you the truth about telling the truth. Better yet known as lying. So, so when I was coming up with this topic, I had this in my notes for quite some time about telling the truth and why people are deceptive. And because I like to think that I'm a very honest person. Right. I like to think that I'm a very forthcoming person with the truth. And even though I can go into long explanations as to why I think the way I think, but I still like to think that I tell the truth.
Okay.
Right. I'm curious. What do you think of yourself when it comes to telling the truth?
The way I think about the truth is I think that it
what happened was
I think it depends on the situation, and I think it depends on sometimes, I think at the basic, without getting too much in depth, because I know you have materials that you're going to go through. Like, I think to me, it's like it depends on the situation, like how honest you're being or not. Because I think, we can think that we're being honest, or we can be honest enough, but that doesn't necessarily because you withhold, does it mean that you're lying?
So that's what we're going to talk about today. That's what we're going to talk. Good segue, Juan. Congratulations. I have nothing to give you, but you won the prize. So here it is. Here's a few facts. Okay, Juan? Research. Can I help you, sir?
That's my prize.
So research shows that the more you lie, the easier it gets and the more likely you're going to do it again. Psychologists have documented children lying as early as 2 years old. So lying is actually considered a developmental milestone, like crawling and walking, because it requires sophisticated planning, attention, and the ability to see a situation from somebody else's perspective to effectively manipulate them. I was like, 2 years old? 2 years old? I was like, there's no way.
That's pretty impressive.
To be able to lie at 2 years old? Yeah. Yes, it is. Some of us aren't even talking at 2 years old. How are they lying? You know what I mean? Like, how did that happen? So anyways, that was an article from the Washington Post. And here I'm going to read part of another article from the BBC. It's The Devious Arts of Lying by Telling the Truth. So a lot of this whole lying thing came up in regards to when Trump got voted into office, when he was running his campaign.
Right.
People were like, what is he, he's not really telling the truth, but he's not really lying? So they were like, what is he saying? What is he talking about? There's an actual word for this one, and I'm going to get to it in just a second. So, you lie by telling the truth.
You lie by telling the truth?
You lie by telling the truth.
Make sense?
Because it's misleading.
But
there's a definition for this. It's called, a word for this is called paltering.
Powdering?
No, paltering. Paltering. Paltering.
Okay.
Lie by telling the truth. So basically, it's by diverting the truth into something else that might be related to the actual truth that's being sought after. Okay,
now I feel like I need to make a disclaimer here. Because my background is in public relations. And I don't consider public relations lying, but I think that one thing that you learn in public relations is that you can arrange the truth in such a way that it presents the facts that you want to present.
All right. Okay. So as you know, we all lie more than once a day, right? Yeah. Because we don't tell the entire truth, but we tell sort of the truth, kind of. And we actually do this because we want to either hide from embarrassment or shame, or we think it's for the greater good.
I can see that. Where sometimes you feel like you're doing it for the benefit of another person.
Correct. So in a study that was given at the University of Santa Barbara, participants were not aware of how many lies they actually told, partly because most were so ordinary and so expected that they just didn't even notice them. Isn't that crazy? Like you're at the point so in deep in this lie that you don't even know that you're telling part of the lie. You don't even know where the truth starts or ends.
Well, that reminds me like of one thing that we said, like I think on a previous episode, where like when people ask you how you're doing, like people don't really want to know how you're doing. So
they're just being polite.
So you lie most of the time, and you say like, "Oh, I'm good, I'm fine."
So wait, who started lying first? The person who asked or the person who's telling?
I guess they're both lying, but I think like you as the person that's being asked a question, like you volunteer to withhold information, and you volunteer not to tell the truth because you're like, I don't want to get into this, or they probably don't care, or like so you're like, oh, everything's good,
I'm fine.
I'm fine. Everything's great. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
Yeah.
How are you?
So you know what part of the population lies the most? Politicians. And it quotes, politicians dodge questions by stating another truthful fact that could get out of answering a question to imply that something was truthful, or to imply that something is truthful when it's not. Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what you were kind of sort of saying?
Yeah, well, I was listening to an interview this morning with Hillary Clinton, and ironically, she was talking about the election, and she was talking about how we're in a constitutional crisis right now
because of lying.
Because of the
holy shit, really?
Because of the rhetoric that was created around Trump when he got elected, and like all the that there are people that believe a lot of things are fake news, or things that don't believe COVID is real, and like things like that.
Yeah.
And how like politically a lot of people are still afraid of Trump because he still has a big hold on a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so she was saying like, she's like, they asked her like, do you think there was a constitutional crisis? She's like, no, we're still in a constitutional crisis right now
because of the outcome of it.
Because people still believe the things that are not true. People still believe this mindset that was perpetrated, and it's just now it's run rampant throughout.
Okay.
So I was like, it made me like, I remembered that right now when you were saying that, because I was like, well, I guess that makes sense. Like, not that I don't believe that the other side didn't lie too, but I think it's like, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Well, the fact that they had to give a whole new term, a definition to what is actually happening.
Yeah.
Paltering. It's like sort of telling the truth. Part of the truth. Oh, not all of it.
Yeah.
It's like they're like the intention of like to deceive you. Yeah. Deception. But here we go, Juan, telling the truth. The different forms of deception. Let me read you some.
Okay. It just reminded me of a situation that happened to us, but I can't say too much
because what?
Because it's not my situation to tell. But
oh shit. Okay, yes, let's not do that, because we would hate to think that somebody's actually listening to it and like, I can't believe they just told all my business out there. Block, delete. So what is deception? Deception can be thought as intentionally misleading someone or causing someone to come to a false belief. The plainest case of deception is outright lying. Someone can lie to you by uttering a false statement, knowing it is a false statement, but yet representing it as true. So, forms of deception, white lies. Some people consider white lies that don't matter to be white lies or fibbing. So, for example, if you suddenly come across a lost friend who really doesn't look good, you might say something like, she looks great. Fibbing, right? Okay. It's what you said earlier for like the common good, for like, oh, if she doesn't look well, I'm not going to sit there and be like, you look like shit, homegirl. Right? Right?
Yeah, but it makes me think like...
I know you're running thoughts all over your mind, so please.
What comes to mind is like the, how the cliche thing that like the wife comes out of the room and she's like, how do I look in this outfit?
Yeah.
And the husband says, you look great. Uh-huh. And then they're like, the only right answer that you can give is you look great. You can't say you don't look good. You can't say it doesn't look right. You need to say you look great. You look beautiful.
Okay. Well, before we get into that, here, let's continue. So also, false suggestion occurs when a person makes a true statement but leaves out crucial information so that the hearer winds up believing something false. So if a person asks you if you were out last night, and you tell them that you were not. Hold on, let me continue. Sorry. sorry. That you were at a party you attended and it ended early, you might think you're implying that you were not out late, but that you came home early. But the question was, were you out last night? No, but it wasn't the question that, were you out last night late? So the idea that you're answering, no, I wasn't out late last night. But you're not telling the truth because you did go out. You did go to that party that you might have said that you weren't.
But doesn't that imply, in you saying, no, I wasn't out late last night, that you're implying like I was out, but I wasn't out late?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
But
it's a false suggestion.
But if you're listening, then you can be like, oh, well, like, wait, so you were out? No?
Yeah. But you weren't out.
No, it's like you were out, but you weren't late. You weren't out late.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I drank. But the truth is, I got, like, toasted.
Yeah.
Like, I got toasted. You know what I mean? No, I drank. Like, oh,
I had a drink. I had one drink.
I mean, it's not a problem.
You know, it was just friends. We all had a drink.
Okay, make sure I pronounce this right.
Euphemism?
Euphemism. Okay, I knew that was okay. A euphemism is a vague, more comfortable term used to place of a more precise but less comfortable term. So, for example, like in the medical field, calling a tumor some tissue or growth might mislead someone into thinking the situation is less serious than the reality actually is. Right? So it's making light of something. It's not the whole, it's not the entirety.
Like
I mean, it's there, but we don't, you know what I mean?
Like
as opposed to
this misunderstanding or this miscommunication, instead of saying like something that calling something what it actually is.
Okay, and on the flip side of Juan, that is the exaggeration in the form of overstatement that is not recognized, such as are considered a form of deception. So you're giving the truth, but you're giving an exaggerated form of the truth. Right? That's the flip side of the euphemism.
Euphemism.
Yes. That's the flip side of that. How many people do you not know who tell the truth but exaggerate so much that they're just lying on top of it?
Yeah, like you make the story more interesting, or like I think the more you tell it and the more people react. Sometimes when the more you tell a story and the more people react and the more they're like, oh my God, for real? Like this, that happened for real? Da, da, da. And then what happened? And then they just embellish and embellish and embellish. And by the time you know it, like they're telling somebody else, like they might have told me the story like in the morning. By the time they get to you in the afternoon and tell you the same story, it's like, oh no, and then if we compare notes, it's going to be like, no, well, they did this and this happened and that happened. And I'm like, well, they didn't tell me that. Like, I didn't hear all that. Like, they told me it was just like a simple whatever. And like, I think it's like, because you're playing to the audience, and the more like compelled they are, interested they are, and you're like, oh, I got to keep them entertained. I got to keep them going.
Yeah. You gotta, you're telling the truth, but the exaggerated version, it's to the point where it's not even the fucking truth anymore. Yeah. Where it's like, okay, like, yeah, it was like all these, like sometimes like some people doing it in forms to like say, like, for example, they were like, yeah, there was thousands of people there. And it's like, no, there's a few hundred.
But sometimes you get if you do that, like like everybody had that friend that it was like, or that, that friend that you knew, like if they told you a story, you were kind of like,
But I'm the idiot that always believed everybody.
Like, okay, like you got to go ask somebody else about that, because the way they're, that person exaggerates, and that person kind of BS's and like they add to it. So you're like, okay, you listen to it, you hear them out, and then you're like, hey, so what really happened?
So like I know Fabiola was there, and she kind of sort of told like what happened, and she talked about there was like 10 cops and she got slammed, and actually a cop car showed up and they asked her a few questions, told her, hey ma'am, can you come here? And she mouthed off, and they're like, hey, stop it. And she was like, okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's an exaggerated truth of it.
Sometimes things can happen to you and they can sound more dramatic than they are. And then when you like...
We were having a whole fight about this earlier today, because you insisted that it wasn't like that. And I was like, no, Juan, you can't just like, you can't minimize my experience on what happened.
No, but like, I think like, I like one time when we were traveling and we were in a hotel, I fell in the bathtub. But when you say that, it sounds really dramatic. Like, I fell in the bathtub, like it sounds so dramatic. But like in reality, like it was like I like did fall, but I didn't hurt myself. I just got back up immediately, and I wasn't hurt. But it, like to say, like, you say that, like, it can sound very dramatic. So, like, somebody could easily play that up, you know, like, oh my God, it's like today I fell in the bathtub and I hurt myself and da 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 da. Like, and you, like, you know, you can, what can I say? Like, when you like milk it, you can milk it. You can milk it and be like, yeah, like, I hurt my back. Like, I fell in the bathtub. Can you believe that? Let me just saying that. Like, can you believe that I fell in the bathtub? And, and like, people will feel sorry for you.
Oh, to like get somebody to feel sorry for you for about it. Yeah.
You get like, and that's a form of manipulation.
It is a form of it. And it's a form of lying.
Yeah.
It's a form of deception.
Yeah. Or like, you know, sometimes people do things like, and you think that they're doing it with one intention without knowing the other side of the like coin. Yeah. That they're doing it for they have a certain like reason why they're doing it. Okay. So in you it might inspire like, oh, you know, they're thinking about me. Oh, you know what, like, you know, oh, maybe I'm being a bad person, and like it's being like, but it's being done. You don't know the reason it was being done.
You know, I've gotten to the point, Juan, where I actually tell friends, because I'm a crier. Like I cry sometimes when I feel like a big emotion, and especially when it has to, because I'm going through I don't know, I think I'm going through a healing process, and so when I think about the things that I'm healing from, I cry, and so I have to like tell people from the beginning of some conversations, like, look, if you hear me cry, don't listen, like, don't look at my tears, don't listen to my tears, just listen to the words that I'm saying, because I can get through like my tears to further express myself. And sometimes I feel like I have to cry to express myself. So I tell them, don't look at my tears, don't feel sorry for me, don't like listen to what I'm saying. And I have to explain that because I don't want them to be manipulated or deceived from it. I still want their honest truth, and I want to get their perspective. So I have to tell people, don't listen, like, I'm a crier, so pay no mind.
That makes sense. But like, I think, yeah, like I was saying, I think sometimes it's like, and I don't think like people do it like, so I think people sometimes do it like you were saying, where you lie without knowing. Yeah. I think sometimes we can be manipulative without knowing that we're being manipulative. Yeah. Or without being fully conscious that like, oh, I'm trying to like get sympathy points, or I'm trying to get empathy points.
I'm trying to get somebody to listen to me, and the way I can do that is by doing this. Right.
I'm trying to get brownie points by doing this, and it's like, you know, like you're not really doing it with the intention of like being like malicious. But it can be like deceiving to the other person. Yeah. It's like, wait, but like, so you don't necessarily feel that way exactly. You're just
imagine telling a story, right? Imagine telling your story on like your car breaking down, okay? And in reality, it was just that you didn't change the filter and you ran out of gas. But now listen to me, my story being, and I don't have any money, and you know, like if I start doing that, then it sounds much more dramatic, much more exaggerated, and that can be a form of manipulation, and it can be a form of like, even though I'm feeling that, even though that's the emotion, even though 50% of it might be my fault, it's still like a way to sway you. And I'm not saying not to express yourself, because I'm a crier, and I always implore people to their anger, to their sadness. So if you're gonna like cry. If you're gonna be angry, I mean, don't like harm anybody with words, but be angry, like do all of that. But if you're using it to deceive, then it's different.
But you know, like going back to the PR of it all, like I think sometimes like if there's a bad situation, like a way to get in front of a bad situation is to like be dishonest in a way.
Okay. Like, explain, sir. Explain. You can't just say that and not explain.
Or like, you know how you ever heard the expression like you get on top of the situation before it really becomes a crisis. Okay. So you change the narrative. So you know, if you know there's this, but you know this thing is gonna come. Like maybe there's like I'm just using an example. So you know that there's a group that's gonna be making like some type of announcement. They're gonna be talking about you. They're gonna be like, you know, asking people to boycott you or whatever. And you feel that you can get in front of whatever the backlash is going to be by confusing the situation up front and making a statement that kind of, you know,
alludes
a little bit. It doesn't really go into details, but says like, you know, you point the finger in the other direction, like we know,
or you say it's not a big problem.
Right, you know, or you say like, we want to come out and make a statement and share with you all this problem that we came aware of that we're doing, but like we're handling and blah blah blah. Yeah. And so then when that other group comes up and you kind of get in front of them, you cut them off. And so when they come and they make their statement or they do their action, whatever it is, you kind of like, it doesn't have the same impact anymore.
Oh shit, we had a friend who did that recently.
You don't have the it doesn't have the same impact, because it's like now it's like, okay, well, who do we believe? Do we believe like the person that came out first, or do we believe that they came out because they knew this was going to happen?
Which is a good way to like get in front of it. It's to change the narrative and give your side of the situation.
Right.
Like what the fuck? Like, you can't tell my story.
Yeah, so it's like like sometimes when you hear people are like being like threatened or whatever, like, and you say like, well, you know what? Well, no, you're gonna tell my truth. No, let me go out and tell my truth first, and then it becomes like a back and forth, and then people have to decide for themselves, like, who do I believe? Unless there's like hard evidence that you can't get away from. It's like, who do you actually believe? And like, you kind of muddy the water. So like in the PR world,
you muddy
tactic.
You muddy the water. You cloud the water before somebody tries to come in and point something that might not be, that they might not even know the entire truth, but who they've now taken the position where they're driving the narrative.
But and you know, we're like, you know, and when you're talking about like corporations with millions of dollars, you're talking about hundreds of lawyers and this and that. You can see how like the power balance is going to be off. And so then like it's going to be much easier for like a major issue, for like a major like company, corporation, brand, or whatever, to manipulate the narrative. To get in front of it.
Yeah, it's very true.
Than it is for like, if it's just like me and you, me versus you, like, okay, like, you know, it's like, okay, well, you have resources, I have resources, but it's not compared to like a major brand. Like, we don't have teams of lawyers behind us that are going to help us.
All we got is our truth. All we got is what we know.
So then it's like, oh, okay, like they don't, who do you believe, Juan or Angelica? Like,
Angelica, of course. We want to tell you about this thing that we're doing for November. It's our Giving November, and it's our way to telling our community thank you, and those listeners, and giving, I don't know, I guess the free ad space to our friends and our listeners and other entrepreneurs is where I actually wanted to go. It's giving the opportunity to highlight them here on our podcast.
First sponsor for the show is going to be Fit Mind Cross Training, which they go by on Instagram, Serge J, and it's Sergio James, on Facebook.
Debt Free Latina. It's an official, her official name is Mayra Alejandra Coaching and Consulting. So she's known on social as Debt Free Latina. Her podcast is called Debt Free Latina, exactly how it sounds.
Taylor Candle & Company is a luxury fragrance brand that promotes self-care through unique scents. So think like, you know, some of the unique scents that you find
as a candle queen, I can attest to this.
I know. I'm thinking mezcal for life. So mezcal as in the drink. If you don't know what mezcal is, you're missing out. You know? Mezcal is one of my favorite drinks, but yeah, it's Mezcal for Life, and their website is actually mezcalforlife.com. But the way they describe themselves, they say they're curious finds for mezcal and tequila lovers.
I love her store. I'm there all the time. I actually should.
I have her air freshener in my car right now.
I probably should. We should probably not be spending as much time as we go sometimes when we sit there. We can sit there for hours and looking through her stuff. So, and you're like, who are you talking about? Kismet Boutique. That's Kismet. She is on Instagram.
Fabes Fab Life on Instagram. That's FABES Fab FABLIFE on Instagram, and he's a hairstylist, and he's also a model based here in Houston. And so he says he does all things hair, creative, set, stylist, visual. We appreciate you guys. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So Juan, do you think you can tell when somebody's lying to you?
I feel like for the most part, sometimes I can.
For the most part.
But the thing is about me is I'm very like by naturally I'm very observant, and I'm also very that's
a lie.
Untrustworthy.
Like, you're untrustworthy.
Like I don't trust. Like
you're always questioning everything.
I'm always like looking for an ulterior motive.
Oh, that's not a way to live life. Wait, why do you shrug your shoulder?
I don't know. That's just me. Like my nature is to be like, let me think about this. Let me decipher this a little bit. Let me
decipher this.
Let me analyze this a little bit. But I'm sure that like there's been plenty of times that people lied to me that I didn't even know.
Okay, Juan. Well, by an article from Better by Today. There is an article called How to Tell If Someone is Lying to You, according to researchers. So, what do you think is among here?
Body language.
Body language? Maybe? Okay. One study found that Americans on average tell about 11 lies per week. And I said earlier there were like more lies, like or something like that. I don't know. There are studies, they're all over the place. It turns out we're lying, okay? That's all we know. That's all you need to know is that you're lying. And how can you tell somebody's lying to you?
Okay.
So in surveying more than 100 psychology graduate students, currently or previously in therapy with Leslie Martin, PhD of Wake Forest University Counseling Center, found that 37% who reported lying most did so to protect themselves in some way, mostly to avoid shame or embarrassment, what I mentioned earlier, to avoid painful emotions or avoid being judged. So research shows our accuracy of distinguishing truths from lies is just 53%. It's like flipping a coin. It's like we're never going to tell if they're actually telling us the truth. Where they're like, it's I guess it's like a form of like Russian roulette. It's like maybe not. So according to behavioral experts and professional interrogators, the key to watch rather than to listen. So you may not be able to hear a lie, but you can spot a liar by being aware of these nonverbal signals, right? And you said earlier, it's like the nonverbal body language. So 1, establish a baseline. Baseline observations are the totality of observing nonverbal attributes absent in introduction or stressors or triggers. Most best baseline measurements should be calibrated during non-confrontational conversation. So you ever watch, okay, so
I don't know, you said a bunch of stuff. I don't know what that means.
Okay, so you ever watch an interrogation tape? And usually like the interviewer, which is like a cop or an investigator, they usually have like nonchalant conversation first for about an hour. And usually they talk to the cops who like showed up at the scene and to see how they were talking, to see how they were like what their verbal cues are. So what they're doing is they're actually establishing a baseline. So is this how this particular person acts without being confronted? So that's basically what I read.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So, number 1, study the eyes. They say that the eyes are the window to the soul when it comes to spotting a liar. Studies the portal may lead you to the truth. A study of people across 58 countries found that the gaze was behavioral that most people associated with deception. So it's not so much about like when people look at you in the eyes, so to say.
I feel like when people lie, they try to avoid making eye contact with you.
Okay. So science shows that liars do not avoid eye contact any more frequently than the actual telling the truth. The key thing though is to look for eye movement. And deception and deviation from the baseline. So remember, we talked about how you form the baseline. So if they're constantly, if eye contact was constant on the onset of a conversation, then changed when a stressor or trigger questions were inserted, this should be noted as a attribution that could be deceptive response. So if you're forming the baseline and this person is constantly talking to you, like looking around, not really making eye contact, or if they are making eye contact, you know what I mean? Like in just normal conversation. And then all of a sudden when you enter the confrontation and you enter the stressor, when you're seeking an answer, the truth, it's when they start like to shift their eyes, is when they start to like no longer look at you in the eyes, when they start to do this, right? They start to look away and they start to like rummage around, like it looks like they're looking for answers or ways to explain themselves by shifting their eyes. And they even say that you can look for like the way they blink, how many times they blink. Like if they're constantly blinking when that's not the way they were like first talking, can be like an indication of a deception.
Okay.
Or if their pupils like dilate.
Well, you have to be looking really close to look at their pupils. Like, dang, like it's like you're looking at like right in their face. Like, hey.
Okay, another one. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but we had a conversation about microexpressions.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that? Okay. When people were instructed to lie, the researchers were able to discern rare microexpressions, flashes of true emotion that show briefly from 1/5 to 1/25 of a second on their faces. Because lying or being told a lie actually triggers something before you even know what your reaction is.
Yeah, well, it's like, I guess it's like when somebody says something to you and you're trying to keep a poker face and then like it bothers you and like you can tell like in a split second, like you can tell
Like
that
there's a joke, like a what? Yeah.
Like it can be just an eye movement. It can just be like
yeah.
You know, where you do that.
Like a quick expression where you squint your face. Yeah.
Yeah,
Is what you
like,
just did right now.
Or it could just be like you're like holding your like pausing your face, like you're like not even like making any expression, where you're just kind of like you freeze for a moment, and it's like that can be an expression too.
Yeah. The face and its musculature are so complex, so much more complex than anywhere else in our external bodies, says Leanne, a graduate student in experimental psychology, collaborate on this research. There are some muscles in the face you can't control, and those muscles won't be activated in the absence of genuine emotion. You just can't do it.
Like where you've been in a situation where somebody's like, you're having a conversation and then somebody says something and you're trying not to react to what they say because maybe they just said it and they don't, like, it's in the moment, and you try not to react to it,
but you do.
But you can't help it sometimes. And like,
no, you can't help it, is what you're saying. Is that you have an actual reaction to everything, even when you're lying.
Yeah, and people look and people note, and other people will notice.
Are looking for it. Yeah.
And then. But
it's so fast.
They'll just be like, oh, like.
That's why they're called microexpressions. They're so quick.
They'll be like, oh, well, like.
So for example,
I don't think Angelica like what I said.
Yeah. So if I ask a question and you don't like the question, you give me a quick microexpression, I know you're probably gonna lie to me, or you're gonna tell me half truth.
Like I remember I remember this one job that I had and like it was to the point where we were doing microexpressions with each other.
What do you mean? Explain.
Where I was asked a question, and my microexpression was to like almost roll my eyes. It was kind of like. And it was like an intent, like
unintentional.
I wasn't trying to do it, but it just came out because I was so like, I was so at the point that I was like, ugh, this person annoyed me, and like
person annoyed.
We annoyed each other. We didn't like each other, and we were at each other's throat, and we had to like work together, and it was just like a situation where we were both like having like these like micro like.
No, y'all were microaggressions is what the fuck y'all were having.
We were like
not microexpressions.
Like, well, needless to say, we ended up going to HR and everything, and they got involved. And we had it all out there. But, you know,
you had it up in HR?
Yeah, we had it all out there where they were like, well, you did this. No, you did this. And then I'm sure the person in HR was just having to like, okay.
I feel they with it like these.
Like, okay, it's my entertainment for the day. Like, who needs reality TV?
No, y'all made her do paperwork is what the hell y'all made her do. Okay. Juan, you're really bad at this.
What?
And this is spot a fake smile. Juan has the best fake smile. The best, because you can see it immediately. And it's not that he's lying, but it's like he either didn't hear you, so he just like fake smiles through shit instead of asking like, what did you say?
No, because sometimes like I think if you don't hear something, or if you didn't hear like capture the whole thing that was said, sometimes you just like a smile or a nod or like you like, and eventually the person will repeat it, or they'll like, or you give them a certain look, like where you say, like you just kind of like.
No, that's not true, because I asked you, I was like, what was that about? I have no idea. I don't know what they said.
Well, yeah, but like in the moment, like I'm not gonna try to make somebody feel like I don't know what they're talking about. But have you ever been like in that situation where like somebody?
No, I'm usually good about asking.
No, but when somebody's in a situation, like I learned this, like I think as a reporter, that like when I was in a conversation with somebody and then like they were telling me something, and I didn't fully grasp it, I would just kind of make a face like. And then,
like they were confused, like you were confused.
Like I was confused, or I'd be like. And then they would be like, "Oh, well, what I mean is da 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 da."
They would go into
and
detail.
They would tell me more, and so I was like, "Oh, okay." So then I learned like I don't really have to ask. I can just kind of like
you don't have to ask. You just have to look crazy. You just have to look crazy or give fake smiles. You'll be all these what.
And sometimes, like, sometimes you don't remember somebody's, like, it's not that you don't want to remember, but sometimes you don't remember who the person is that's greeting you randomly. Like, somebody might come up to you that you haven't seen in years, and they're like, hey, Juan, how are you doing? And this and that.
And that's when Juan's fake smile comes on.
And I'm just like, hey, how's it going? It's good to see you. How you been doing? And this and that.
And you start running through your mind.
And eventually, like, most of the times in conversation, then I'll be like, oh, okay. Now I know who now I'm caught up. I know who I'm talking to.
Now you know everything makes sense now.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, okay, now I connect the dots real quick in my head, and then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, so blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But like every once in a while, you can't do it doesn't click, and then you're just kind of like, I don't know what I just I don't know who I was just talking to. Or what we were talking about.
So back to spotting the fake smile. Liars are more likely to press their lips together, leaving their smile looking forced and tense.
Wait, what? Liars are what?
Liars are more likely to press their lips together, leaving their smile looking forced and tense. No, where you go like this. Yeah, right there. That's what you do all the time. Can't do that. You look like you're goddamn lying all the time. What are you doing?
Trying to see how it looks.
Where you do this, you go, mm-hmm. How many people do that? If that's you, let us know. Juan does that all the time. I'm like, Juan, did you hear it all what they said? No idea. I'm like, then why? What the hell are you doing? Okay, so a truthful person smiles with their entire face, like the infamous Mona Lisa. Crow's feet indicate honesty. I don't know if that's true, but
well, so honesty,
you got honesty. See, that's a genuine smile, not that other fake one that you do. Okay. We tend to distress people who are shifty-eyed, break eye contact, and won't look you in the eye at all. There are plenty of innocent explanations for this, whether they are shy, nervous, socially awkward. So focus.
A condition of some sort.
Yeah. So focusing on someone's eyes when they smile is a great way to rule out these other explanations. So, and then I think this is the last one. It's look for signs of stress.
Fidgeting, grabbing your hand, or your hair, like.
Correct.
Yeah, like that's usually for me. Yes. I'm like, oh, okay. Like,
liar. Oh, did I say that really loud? I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to
like, side-eyeing the person in my mind, in my head. I'm like, okay, what's going on here?
Oh my God, I do that. I'm so loud. I'm so loud. I'm so sorry. Okay, so touching of the face is a form of, like, it's a pacifier. That's a form of pacifier. As it has a common effect to an otherwise brain under stress. Foot tapping, fidgety hands when during the baseline, if they're not doing this like in normal conversation, like you remember I was talking about creating a baseline. So if they're not like tapping their hands or fidgeting their hands or like their feet, and all of a sudden when you start to like press a conversation or press the truth and they start to do this, there might be some percentage of deception, basically. So you should take note of that. So be mindful of any changes in blinking speed, swallowing, facial hand rubbing, yawning, hair twirling, or any rate of breathing. All actions that may hint and lies in a process. Right? So if you're in conversation and they don't take a pause to like taking a deep breath, you say something, they're like, well, you know what I mean? Right? But then all of a sudden when you're in that conversation, that's what they do. And you already asserted a baseline. You're like, hold on, why all of a sudden when this topic comes up, you're, well, you know what I mean? So look for those kind of actions. So, but yeah, that's how to tell when somebody is lying, according to researchers. Quick interruption. If you're listening to this podcast, you're listening to Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rate and a review and let us know what you think. The more reviews you leave, the more likes we get, the more people actually are out there to find us. Maybe we're not your cup of tea, but we might be your crazy cousin's cup of tea. Go let her know we're out here. Any thoughts, Juan?
No,
did I miss anything?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Yes, thank you for listening.
I mean, I guess I go back to the question, like, if at what point does a lie become a lie? If you're just withholding information, If you're just withholding, if
you're according to the research, is the new term, you're paltering.
No, I know, but like not necessarily that. Like I'm saying, like if sometimes like when I said earlier, like it's not my story to tell. So I don't, like if somebody asks me about it, I'm not gonna say like the whole thing. I'm not gonna say what I'm talking about, like or if it's like a personal issue that I really don't want to get into, and I just say like what, it's complicated, or there's a lot of different factors that play into it.
Well, that's more different than like if it's concerning somebody else and they want to know what's going on.
But like you and I both have big families, like both big big families with a lot of siblings, and sometimes like when your mom or my mom, they're holding somebody's information, and then we were just talking about this the other day, and you asked them like what happened, like so what's going on or what happened, and they're like, oh, I don't know. And you're like,
my favorite. That's my mom's favorite answer. I don't know.
And you're like, well, what do you mean? And you keep asking questions.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. And you're like, but you do know. Like, why don't you want to tell me? Like, I don't know. I don't know. And that's withholding.
Yeah.
Like, that's withholding. And I think like is that really a lie? Like, are you lying at that point, or you just
because you were asked a question,
or you're just protecting like other people's information, so you're being discreet. Like
that's not discreet.
That is being discreet. You're being discreet. You're being like, you're trying to keep somebody's information private, like, or business private. So you're not trying to like blast it. So you're not trying to say, because somebody might have told you like, don't tell anybody, or like keep this to yourself.
I don't know. I think it's lying. I want to call it lying.
But I don't know if I consider that lying, because I'm like, I feel like at that point I'm like, if I was doing that, like if I'm doing that, or when I do that, when I'm like, oh, it's just this, or like I don't know, I really don't know. Like I don't feel like I'm lying. I feel like I'm just like not, like I'm not sharing information that maybe is not mine to share.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with that. Okay, but I'm trying to think of a moment when I thought it was okay.
When you thought it was okay to withhold? To
withhold, yeah.
Oh.
I'm trying to think of a moment when I thought it was okay to withhold. And it's not like I've been, information has been withheld from me many times. And that's because I tend to be on the very much side of do what's right. And not because I think I'm right, but because if it's going to hurt, you might as well have it hurt now than later. Not because I think I'm better, because I'm definitely not. I'm also a liar. I'm also, you know what I mean? Like I also withhold. I also, keep people's secrets. So that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that so much I don't like the secretness of things sometimes. And it's not so everybody knows the information, but it gets to the point where it's so fucking tense. And especially like in families, it's so tense. You're like, what's going on? Like, what the hell? What's up? What is with the funk in here?
You're like, what's going on? Like, am I the only one that doesn't know?
Yeah, and then you start feeling like left out. You're like, well, fuck, somebody spilled the fucking cheese, man. Like, what's up? Is it me? Is it like that? Me? Like that TikTok? Is it me?
Am I the drama?
Am I the drama? Let me know. I mean, I probably am, but let me know. What did I do? Or is it that I just think? So that because I mean, sometimes it can be hurtful, even when they think they're doing a service to you.
Yeah,
but I feel like they're giving them. I feel like sometimes it's giving them more time to like figure it out, to how to like sway the conversation later.
Yeah, because I guess you're to that point, like you should have the choice to like to know to whether or not you want to know the information, because it could be that somebody starts telling you the thing and you're like, oh, you know what, I don't need to know that. I don't need to get involved.
Yeah, we've gotten to that place in our life, Juan, where we choose not to know some stuff.
And it's like, you can make that choice, but I guess in some instances I can understand how sometimes people look to are thinking that they're doing it for the better, or
they're doing a service,
or they're doing it for a good reason. And then I'm like, okay, what I'm a little bit more like that, not confused, but like that is a little bit more off-putting to me, is like when you, like you said at the beginning, like when you lie so much that then you don't even know like what the truth is, or anymore. And then it's like wait, I can't even have a conversation because I don't even know like what's true and what's not. And but that's such a
it's such a strange,
it's such a
stressor.
It's such a strain on you because you're like, I don't know what to believe. And and like, as I think, like as a human being, that's such a hard place to be, like where you don't know what to believe. Because I think we generally,
not even that, you think to yourself like, well, why don't you want to tell me?
Right.
Like, is there something about me?
Or like, to me, it's like, well, I don't want to be, I want to know the truth. I don't want to be confused. I don't want to be like,
I don't want this to come up in conversation later and me be completely out of the loop.
Or to be like, I hear this way, and here over here, and this over there, and this over there.
You're
and
right.
It's like, wait a minute, what? Like,
but they're right too. You know what I mean? They're right too, because it's theirs to tell.
Right.
You know what I mean? But if it's so, do I consider it a lie? Probably not. But if it's something that I'm like, it concerns me and I'm asking outright, and you're lying, and like you're choosing not to tell me, then it's a lie.
But the other thing is, like, lying is hard work because you have to remember.
It is. I was reading the paper, and I glazed over that.
What your lie was.
Yeah, I glazed over that. There's an actual quote from Abraham Lincoln that says it's too much work to lie.
Yeah.
Or something like that. I don't know where it's at, but it's in there.
I like at one point in my life where I said a bunch of lies, and then I didn't even know what what lies I had told to what people. So then I was like, and then I was like, you know what? I just need to be honest and like not lie and like not make up stuff, because I think then it gets hard, and then it's easy to spot it sometimes, especially like with younger people. And I was pretty young when I was doing it, so people would question me and they'd be like, wait, but I thought you said this happened, but I thought you said you did this. Oh, well, I did, but then. But that was before. No, that was after. No. Oh, so you did this and then you did that, and you still had time to do that. Yeah. Like it was real fast.
It all happened. It all happened. All of it. The dog ate my homework. I ran over the dog. I mean, you pick it. That's a horrible way to explain
it's
things.
Like, it's like you at one point you're like, okay, like this is too much work. Like I can't keep up with all the lies. Like, I just need to like say like, you know what, I didn't do my damn homework.
You know what, Juan? But I do find myself being this older, like doing a lot of white lies, fibs.
Yeah.
And I do that for an extension of time, so like that I can buy myself time to figure out how I feel about it. Before I hear anybody's opinion, because sometimes I do it so I don't want to let other people's opinion like sway my opinion, and so I'd rather just like keep the information to myself for as long as I can, for as long as I need to, so I can form my opinion. And like that, when they combat me with like, oh, this is why, this is this is that, I'm like, oh, okay, well, no, this is the way I think, so that's fine.
I think I do more of the like preemptive, like avoiding certain conversations.
Oh, do you?
Because I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm like, oh, you know what, I probably don't need to have that conversation. I probably don't need to like, have that interaction today, because it might lead to this question or to that question or to this or to that, and I'm like, I don't want to go down that road. So I'm like premeditating. I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm going to go this direction today instead of that direction, because I'm trying to avoid it. Like, I don't want to have to lie, but like I don't want to have to withhold. It's because it's awkward when you have to withhold too. Yeah. Like you feel like you kind of feel guilty because you're like, well, I mean, I do kind of know what's happening, but like I was told not to tell. So I'm like,
I was told not to say much.
I'm like, I'm trying to honor that, and I'm like, but I like do see why you should know, and I'm like. I say I'm like trying to bite my lips, but like ask me the right question.
Do you ever do that where like they want to tell you, but it has nothing to do with you? Oh yeah. And you're like, you know what? Maybe it's not a good idea. That you when you figure it out, you talk to so and so person. Like you're gonna put me in an awkward situation.
I've never done that.
I found myself, I've done that a few times, not several times, a few times, where I'm like, maybe not.
I'm not that quick. I'm not that quick with it. Like I can't think of that fast. Like me, I'm like, I'm like, oh, like I'm
So you're stuck.
listening, and I'm like, oh, okay, like now I know all this information, and I'm like, oh crap, like now, now what? Like, but I'm not that quick with it to think like, oh, you know what? Maybe you should have this conversation with somebody else.
Yeah, so they'll be like, oh, you know what? Well, they might think like this. So, but I mean, you know what? You should wait to have the conversation. You should think about what you're doing and what you want to say and how you want to confront it. And, maybe go like that. So like that, when they come and ask me, I'm like, well, they really didn't mention it. I kind of know they kind of said they have an issue, but they didn't go into detail. And it's the truth. For me, it's the truth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was more like, don't say a lot to me, because it might put you already, like, I don't want to assert myself in the conversation and sway you. I mean, not that I think I have power over people, not that I think I can sway people, but who knows? I might say something that might sway them. Even like if they're already like pre-thinking that, it might confirm it to them. And I don't want to confirm anything to anybody when they're already, you know what I'm saying? They're questioning it. So it's more like, oh, so it's part truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I think it's hard. Like I mean, it's hard to to keep that information to yourself sometimes. And sometimes, like I was saying, like you would like, you kind of want, like, ask me the right question.
Yeah.
And and we can talk, and I'll tell you. But if you don't ask me the right question, I can't tell you, because you're not, like, if you kind of corner me, like, how the people say, like, twist my arm.
My arm was twisted. Yeah.
And they're like, when the other person confronts them, and they're like, oh, so you went and told?
Ay, why are you hitting me? Jesus.
They're like, oh, so you went to chismoso, you went to tell? And you're like, no, they forced it out of me. They told, I didn't want to say anything.
It sounded like they already knew, so I was just telling them what you said. You didn't want me to tell them? Yeah. If you didn't want me to tell them, why did you tell me? You knew it. No, I'm just kidding. No, we're not that chismosos no more. No. We're not there anymore. That's not us anymore. At least most of the time we're not. That's not us more. 85% of the time that's not us, all right? No.
But no, this is an interesting conversation, because I think there's a lot of a lot of layers. You can think about it in different ways.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like I said, like, to me, like, I don't think withholding is always lying. But I think there's a fine line.
Yeah.
I think there's a fine line. Like, if you're withholding for a reason, or like, to me, like, I guess like more the manipulation of it is what I guess bothers me. Is like when you're doing things with bad intentions, or you're doing things with with the idea that you're gonna, like, because you take one action, it's gonna cause that reaction that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's not, and you're not doing it genuinely. You're doing it in a dishonest way.
In a way to get something differently.
Yeah. And I'm like, I don't like that, because I'm like, then I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like that. I don't like the feeling of that.
Yeah. So don't do it.
Don't do it. Yeah. But it's like human behavior. Like, that's so the other thing.
We say it so simply. Don't do it. But it's like, hold on.
It's human behavior, because like even between us, like, I think, like, if we want to, like,
Juan, I swear to God, you fucking lie. No, I'm just kidding. No, I know you lie. And here's the thing.
No, I mean, like,
I formed a baseline. We form baselines with each other, so we know.
Yeah, but like, I mean, like, but when you want, like, when you or I, like, want to, like, sway the conversation one way, or like want to, like, we're trying to, like, do get, dale por las buenas, or whatever, that expression, like, then you are gonna, like, do things or say things, and it's not that you're being manipulative, like, in a bad way. Like, you're not doing it to be like, oh, I'm gonna get, like, what I want.
I'm gonna get it. Yeah. That's what I thought.
Yeah, it's not like, it's not malicious. It's just more like, like, you're navigating. But I think when it's malicious, or when it's like, even if it's not malicious, but if it's like intended to, like, to get something out of you, that, like, the other person's gonna get away with something from you. Yeah. Then I think that's where I'm like, wait, like, that feels like a little bit more harmful. Yeah. Like that, as opposed to, like, if you and me are just doing it, and, like, we're not doing it to be harmful to each other. Then I'm like, okay, like, that's different. But, like, if you're doing it to be to like hurt me, or to, like, get one on top of me, or get one on me, then I'm like, wait, like, that's not cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to say that like I'm okay with lying feels wrong. But I get why some people would twist the truth. And I think, and between us, I try not to do it.
Yeah.
And I try to say as much as I can. But sometimes I do. Sometimes I withhold, like I said earlier, to like not be swayed. You know, not to be, you know what I mean? Not to be like ingested with like what I should be thinking. So sometimes I keep things, some comments or informations or emotions to myself.
And I think, I mean, for me, like one of the things that I learned, or I feel like I've learned over my lifetime, is like that everybody doesn't have to know everything.
I had a friend tell me that.
Like, I feel like everybody doesn't have to know everything all of the time. And I feel like that, like, for me, like, was such a big, like, learning lesson to learn, to be like, oh, you know what? It's up to me to choose, like, what I say and when I say it and to who I say it and how I say it. And, like, I decide, not because I want to be malicious or because I want to be, like...
malintent, yeah.
But because, like, if it's for my own, like, peace of mind, my own, like... what I feel is okay for me, then it's my choice.
I hear you say that, Juan, and I think to myself, oh, that's everybody else. That's not me. Like you're telling other people that. I want to think that you tell me the truth all the time.
Oh, I do tell you the truth.
No, but even today when I asked you a question about a certain topic, you're like,
Yeah, because in that situation, I was like, it's not my truth to tell. It's not my... But the conversation... would have not affected me at all. No, I know, but I still
you know
feel
what I mean?
like... I know, but sometimes it can change your opinion about...
somebody
or
oh, I see what you're saying.
And I was like, and without that other person being able to, like, speak on their behalf, speak up for themselves, like, it's hard for me to be like... And I've learned that, too, because, like, before, like, I mean, I would just, like, share whatever, like... Yeah. And, you know, like, la lengua toda suelta, you know, now you're like, oh, and it's like not like it's not that I'm like trying to withhold. It's just that I'm like, you know what, like I have to like be more like mindful, respectful, like I don't know, like respect to hold like things that are not mine.
Yeah. So like you said earlier, there was many layers of this, but so before we like go on these tangents of like lying and stuff, and I think this is a really good stopping point. What do you think? Yeah? So what did you learn?
That as human beings, we are very complicated individuals.
Oh, shit.
No, because I think we are, because I think that depending on any given situation, which perspective you're looking at it from, you can see it as bad or you can see it as good. And it's all like subjective. It's all, it's not.
So a lie is subjective?
No, like the person, like the act of that person, like, because like, you know, like.
Yeah,
like,
I know what you're saying.
Like I could, like what I did could be like, oh, okay, so he's being dishonest. Or it could just be like, oh, okay, well, he's trying to be respectful. Like, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, it could go, depending on who's looking at it, who's making the judgment, it can be good or bad. So I feel like as human beings, we're complicated, and like, you're always going to piss somebody off.
Yeah.
So
for me personally, what I've learned when I was like reading some of this stuff is, it depends on me how comfortable I am with being lied to and telling that lie. I don't think it's subjective. I think it's when it's personal, like it said, we withhold information to avoid embarrassment or shame. And that has been a lot of not my lies, but my truth telling of like my story. It's my story, and some of it makes me feel embarrassed and ashamed, and I've chosen not to tell part of it. But in terms of like everyday life, and things that might hurt me or harm me, like if the lie hurt me more than the truth, then it wasn't worth the lie. So I guess that's where I'm at with that. Yeah, that's what I learned so far. And you're right. A constant liar can very little keep up with their lies. Yeah. So be careful with how you lie and who you lie to and how much of it you're doing. Yeah. You're gonna break friendships. You're gonna, And sometimes do yourself more harm than good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I learned.
So are you a liar?
Sometimes. Sometimes.
All right, mentirosos. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, chismosos is what the hell we are.
No, I'm just saying, okay, mentirosos. Thank you for listening to this episode.
Chismosos, mentirosos out there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. It was very complex, as Juan said. A very interesting topic. We want to hear what you have to say about lying.
Definitely.
Do you think the way we think? What did you think about some of these articles being written, some of these research? And did you catch somebody in a really big lie and you thought to yourself, holy shit, I didn't even know that was the truth?
Yeah.
So,
and
but yeah.
if you enjoyed this episode, share it with somebody that you know. Share it with somebody that can understand. Like if you've ever fibbed or lied a little bit, or you're somebody who can relate and be like, oh, you know what? I do know somebody who's who can't keep up with their own lies.
Yeah.
But share it with somebody. And if you enjoyed this episode, leave us a rating or a review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps us to gain new listeners. And we had a new listener that made a comment on our podcast recently.
Really?
On Apple Podcasts, and we appreciate you. And they said they were looking forward to our episodes every week, so we appreciate that. We're so excited to hear that.
Thank you for that.
That feedback always is motivating, and it makes us feel good. So we appreciate you listening, and if you're, like I said, leave us a rating, a review. It helps us find new people.
Yeah.
But with that,
all right,
we'll see you next time. Hasta luego.
Bye.